So I did Joe Budden.
Right.
I touched on him as a whole a little bit, but I mainly did the review of Hollywood's Bleeding by Post Malone.
Okay.
I didn't review that I didn't even listen to that album. I listened to maybe the first 5 tracks of it.
Right.
But that's it. So I can't really speak on what he says, but he doesn't really say that much on it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like Joe. I'm going to say that straight up. I don't like Joe Budden.
Rip Joe.
He has to be the centre of attention at all times. And you can tell that the other 3 that are on the podcast with him, the rest of the crew, don't go as hard at him. Like, he's allowed to dish it out 100% to everyone else.
Right.
But if they dish it back 20%, nah.
Right.
Not allowed. You can tell they're sort of like holding it back a lot of the time. I've seen a couple of times where like Mal, the guy on the chair, like, that's a weird setup. I just want to say as well. Why is one cunt just sitting on a chair,
right,
and the rest on like sofas? But what's it that like cunt that has his face out of everything?
I don't know. I haven't watched much of the Joe Budden podcast, so
weird.
I wouldn't know.
So yeah, Mal will say something, and Joe will like stand up and sort of like square up against him. Like, it is done in a joke way, and that's okay. But the other guys don't do that.
Right.
So you can tell that Joe's like, well, if you do that, you're fired. You
Right.
know? He's just going to throw a bit of a hissy. But onto the album review. I'll start out with the things I didn't like. He contradicted himself a fair bit. He said at the start, I never care about what these guys sell.
Right.
So sort of about like first week sales. But then literally like 2 minutes later, like 2 minutes and 10 seconds, he goes, Post is projected to do 550.
Right.
And like he was like, that's huge, like 550. And he obviously cared about it.
Yeah.
Like, why say that you feel one way on the topic when obviously you don't feel that way? Like, yeah. One thing I really dislike though is they spent about half of the review talking about the fact that he's white.
Right.
Now, I understand that it does play a role in what the general public thinks of him and the music that he makes. So I understand that these guys need to talk about that, and especially because that subject surrounds Post in particular as well, because he's had a bit of controversy surrounding him for being a culture vulture. Charlemagne called him out on that, and saying that if you want meaningful listens, then don't listen to hip hop.
Right.
Like, he did say that, he got a lot of hate for that. But for half of the review talking about that, that's a bit excessive.
Right.
The biggest thing they mentioned sort of related to race was the fact that Post had Future, Meek Mill, Lil Baby and Travis Scott back to back to back. And they praised him for that. They said that the amount of confidence he must have had in his own songs to be able to put so many people from the same subgenre next to each other and not get lost in amongst that, the confidence he has is huge. And like, that's well said, and I do agree with that.
Right.
But that has more to do with race than the subgenre, I think. Like, they said, I'll get it up again, that to be able to put so many people from the same subgenre. But I don't think that's talking about music. I think that's talking about race. Because, like, I wouldn't consider Post to be in that pool of artists just because of the music that he makes. It's not the fact that he's white. He very rarely makes music like that, like the sort of mumble rap, like Lil Baby,
right,
Gunna, that kind of thing. But like, there are white rappers I would put in that sort of scene, like Paul Wall, Lil Xan. I know they're not good compared to like Thugger and Future, but they're in there. It's not just black people do that kind of music, white people do like rock sort of music. Like,
right.
it's not what it is. Like, but yet they're segregating it like that.
Right.
Like, Post is brave for having all of these people from there.
Yeah.
But like, it's just about the music that they're making. I think if one of those guys were on there, like Paul Wall or Lil Xan, they wouldn't put them alongside the black artist. They would, even though they make similar sort of music,
right.
I feel like they would sort of group them with Post.
Right.
And I say that they are saying that. I've lost where I'm at. They're saying that they're not in the same pool of artists, not because of the fact that they make different types of music, but because of their race. And I'm saying that that's what they're saying, because they mentioned that while on the topic of race. They were talking about the racial issues surrounding Post Malone and then moved on to, but like pulling these guys from the subgenre.
Right.
Like, that's not the subgenre. That's just, they're talking about black people. And why does that matter?
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, an album, a song, music is art.
Yep.
You don't go to a museum and ask about the race of an artist.
You're not wrong.
You don't ask how many coloured collaborators he has.
Right.
You go to a museum and you look at... What am I up to? I just skipped like a lot. You go to a museum and you look at a painting. You're interested in what the painting is trying to tell you. What the painting is about.
Right.
So what's the story of the song? What's it trying to tell me? What's the message here? You're interested in what colours are used and how the artist used them. So what lyrics are being said and the flow that they're being said in. You know, that's what you go to a museum and look at art to do. It should be the exact same with music. Doesn't matter what the fuck the artist does.
Right.
Or is.
Yep.
You're there to listen to their art. And that's it. Like, nothing else should matter. Like, obviously, if they've killed a baby, then maybe sort of boycott their music a little bit.
Right.
But you don't play in to their... you don't, like, take parts of their personal life to judge their music off of. That's not how art works. That's not what that is.
Yep.
But moving away from that, I'll say the good things that I did like about the review. They discussed the in depth, like the arrangement of the tracks. I know Travis Scott is praised heavily for that, especially on Astro World. He's just sort of the order of tracks. He was praised very heavily for that. They said that it was really done. Fuck me, I'm thirsty.
Oh, I'm playing a song by accident.
But yeah, like I said at the start, I haven't listened to it, so I can't really speak on that. But they listened to some of it like then and there and reacted to it. Mal hadn't heard it at that point before, so to me that seems like an unplanned segment, because if you're going to plan to talk about an album, surely you'd listen to it. Yep. Like, that sort of makes sense to me.
Makes sense, yeah.
But they only listened to like 2 or 3 tracks, like they were sort of running out of time. Right. Maybe something else they discussed took a little bit too long. But overall, I think it was a pretty piss poor album review. They didn't review it.
That's piss poor. I
think they should rename it to album discussion. I think that would suit their style more, because they don't review it, they sort of just talk about it and the topics surrounding it. Yep. But even then, it's not about the album. It was sort of just a discussion about Post Malone.
There you go.
So that's my review of Joe Budden. I don't think he's a very good person. He's just there for sort of...
controversy.
Yeah, that is his job, and Charlemagne's as well, which is sort of why a lot of people dislike them. Their job is to create controversy.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, I do understand that. But they don't have to go about it the way that they do. If that makes sense, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.